Hi guys, it's Tara and welcome to another Crafting with Curly Cues video. Today I have a Tupelo Designs LLC design team project to share with you. So to start, I'm going to go ahead and get out my Zig Clean Color Real Brush markers. I have the 60 pack, and to keep them organized I have put some watercolor hole punches on the top in the color that the marker is so that I can see what color I'm grabbing when I go to use these, and I found that to be really helpful. So for today's project, I've got some cold press watercolor paper, and then I picked out 4 coordinating blue tones here that I'm going to use to create just a really simple gradient watercolor background. So these pens are super versatile. They not only color beautifully and blend together, but they are watercolor. So it's a really easy way to get some color on your paper without having to get out a bunch of ink pads and create just a really fun watercolor background. So you can see I just scribbled really loosely, nothing fancy, onto my watercolor paper. And then I'm coming in with my water brush and I'm just really simply going over the top and applying some water and blending all those colors together. So they blend perfectly, really, it's seriously a no effort kind of project. So once I've done that, I'm going to come in with my heat tool and I'm going to dry those colors because I do want to add an additional layer and just give it that little bit of extra interest by having a couple different layers of color. So you could absolutely stop at this point. I think it looks absolutely beautiful. But I just wanted to go in and just make things a little bit more vibrant and add just a little bit more interest by putting more color on top. And I even kind of had a bonus with this project because my water brush, the last project that I used it on, I did some watercoloring with Perfect Pearls, and I apparently didn't rinse it quite as well as I should have because I am getting some gold shimmer on the top of my project here. So bonus, that's a way to make it even extra fancy, is to watercolor with Perfect Pearls. So that happened by accident, but I think it looks pretty anyway. So you can see I'm just putting a little bit of that color back on top of the other colors there, and then just coming in with a little bit less water this time and spreading it out. I do want it to stay a little bit more vibrant and get the different interest. So I like kind of how at the bottom the water kind of went in some different areas and then dried with some edges. I think that just kind of gives it a little bit more zing in your finished product. So now that I've got that done, I'm going to once again come back in with my heat tool and dry that. You could let this dry naturally if you wanted to. I personally am way too impatient for that. I did go ahead and hit the back of my paper with the heat tool as well, and that just helps the page to warp in the opposite direction so you don't get quite as much warping because it did put a lot of moisture followed by heat on there, so my watercolor paper got a little warped. So now to finish this card up, I'm going to do some heat embossing, and I'm prepping my page with my embossing tool. I usually use my EK6S powder tool, but I couldn't find it today, so I used my embossing buddy instead. And then I'm just going to do a little test with my Ranger Superfine white detail embossing powder and make sure nothing's going to stick. And now with my Doodlebud stamp set by WPlus9, love this stamp set, so many different options, and I think it looks great for this type of project because it does look like that sketchy kind of hand-drawn doodle. So I'm not coloring it in, I just want this background to be the focus, so this is a really great set for that. So once I've stamped it, I'm going to go ahead and cover it with the powder so that I can see where my images are at as I continue to stamp out my scene here. That just kind of helps me with placement and such because I could not see that Versamark on there at all. So now that I've got my little flower, I was going to come in and I was going to do another flower. I was going to kind of do like a whole little garden, but once I saw the spacing and the way that things were working out here, I decided just to go ahead and leave it simple and go with a less is more technique on this card, which for me is a challenge because I tend to like more is more. That's usually my thing. So I went ahead and just stuck this really pretty scripty hello sentiment on there that's also in the stamp set. And then I'm going to come in with a couple of these little zigzaggy doodle lines and just put a couple of those around just to add to that handwritten kind of Zentangle doodly look of the card. And then this card is going to be pretty much set for the front, and I'll just need to go ahead and heat set all of that beautiful white embossing powder. So I really love the way that the white just kind of pops on the colorful background. I think it looks really neat. So I did go in and hit that with my heat tool. I did want to share with you guys that there is going to be a blog hop coming up for Tupelo Designs LLC, so that is going to start on January 4th. There's going to be some really fun giveaways with that, as well as some announcements on some of the super fun stuff to look forward to for January at Tupelo Designs LLC. It's the 1-year anniversary of the store, so there's going to be all kinds of good stuff. You definitely don't want to miss out on it. I'm going to link to the store down below in the description. There's all kinds of new product coming in. Make sure you hop over there and check it out. So, back to my card. I have taken my card base and I just put a piece of coordinating washi tape from my stash along the folded edge there. And then I noticed that the washi tape wasn't quite thick enough to let my panel just sit on the rest of the card. So I'm going to do some crafty improvising, and I'm just going to take this A2 card and just trim it down a little bit. So there's no rule that says that your card has to be exactly this size or that size. So if the need arises, just go ahead and improvise. So I trimmed a little bit off the side and the top to make sure that my panel is going to fit onto my card base, and it's beautifully fit now, so that makes me happy. So now I'm just going to assemble this really quick, and I'm just going to grab my ATG gun and make sure I get the back of this watercolor panel nice and sticky. It does want to warp, so extra adhesive is not a bad thing in a situation like this. And then I'm going to take some craft foam. I want to go ahead and pop this panel up off the card because this is a really simple design. I just want to give it a little bit of extra visual interest by popping this piece up. So I choose to use craft foam for that because it's going to supply the most support if you were to send this through the mail. You could absolutely use foam tape or foam squares, whatever you wanted, to go ahead and pop this up. So now that that's done, I'm just going to line this up with the bottom and the non-folded side of my card here. And you can see that my panel is now plenty big enough to cover the front of my card base. In fact, it's a little too big, so I'm just going to go ahead and trim a little bit off the top of that here. And then this card could be done at this point if you wanted it to. It's beautiful. It's got lots of interest with that watercolor background. But I decided to go ahead and throw on some Cartwright's Moonshine sequins. So I've got 8mm cupped, and then I've got some 5mm flat sequins. And I have never used flat sequins before, but I wanted to give it a try, and I actually really love the look of having the cupped sequins with the flat sequins. It just adds a little bit of something extra. So that is the card. Off camera, I did round the 2 outside corners for a little bit of extra bada bing, but for the most part, this card is done. I love the simplicity of it and the way that that white just pops on that pretty blue background. Just a really fun card you can throw together really quick for any occasion. So thanks so much for watching, you guys. Please hit subscribe, leave me a comment. I really love to hear from you all. You can find a list of all the supplies I've used over at my blog. Please join me on Facebook, Pinterest, and Instagram. Thanks, guys. Bye.